Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Quantum Coalescence podcast. And this is a podcast hosted by three ladies, Jen, Missy, and myself, Laina. And today we are discussing the question, is it the practitioner or the modality? Sometimes we are attracted to people that we kind of see out there, whether it's on social media or in person, because we like, what they're talking about and the topics that they are posting about are interesting to us. And sometimes we're just attracted to people because we like their energy. We feel safe in their presence. So how can we go about determining if it is that person or if it is the modality or the energy that they are running?
I think we've all had the experience where Jenny from the block says, oh, you should try this thing. I did this thing and I feel so good. And here's this person's name. And you go and it's just not quite the same experience for you. I think everybody can kind of relate to that in some fashion or another. But it could be, that could have been, not only is the practitioner maybe not on your frequency or vibration, but also the practice may not be for you. And that is kind of the whole point here, I think.
Yes, agreed. Yes. You know what's funny is I was thinking about in preparations for this a little bit, and I think it kind of depends on how long you've been getting, let's say, work done, readings done, things like that. Because I know getting into it, you're just searching for the modality in a lot of cases. I don't know you don't know the community, you don't know who's offering what, so you're just on Google searching who does Reiki.
Right.
And you're lucky enough to know what Reiki is, at least when I first was getting into. But personally, I was really kind of conflicted because I just knew something was wrong in quotations. I did not feel right. I needed external help on a soul level. And I didn't know what the heck I needed. I didn't know what it was called, or did I need Reiki? Did I need chakra stuff? Did I need shamanism? Did I just need to talk to somebody? Like, did I need a reading? I had no clue. And so when I went to embark on that, and then you see, let's say a shop who has a list long, huge 2-page thing of different services, it is so overwhelming. It is so like, I don't know what I need.
No.
I just need something.
That's when you move into stalker mode and you start creeping
right.
on people. I mean, honestly, starting to look at people on social media, I think is probably, when you're there, that's probably a big deal. And knowing that you're resonating with someone. You said something there and I was like, ooh, we should touch on that. How do you know when you need external help in the first place? Like, this is your base decision here. Before even deciding what modality, you have to admit or make the decision that you need outside or desire outside help. So what causes you to get to that point where you're like, I need help?
For me, I was just spinning wheels and got constant mode of, when you, oh God, there was that yearn or that there was a carrot dangling that I couldn't reach, and it was just that frustrating. Like, I know I can get to that and I don't know how to articulate those feelings inside. Or two, it's just out of curiosity. So you start, when you start digging, especially new into this, you're like, oh, well, let me get my tarot cards and I'm going to dig. And then they keep slapping you over the face with some hard stuff that you have to face. And you're like, oh, that's a little bit more heavy than I am willing to embark on my own. Or it's a level of that, plus I don't feel confident in my own skills to navigate that. For me, it was just that inner gut of like, I've hit a wall of my own self-healing, because like we mentioned in previous, I've been doing this for almost a decade, and the first 6 years were me solo work. I didn't even know this community doing any of this stuff in the area. So, doing all of that work, you can get a lot done. But when you keep spinning wheels and you keep hitting this wall, and it's like, well, I can't be the only one. And then all of a sudden, you get shown where to go, and you get a person showing up, and that was, I guess, more of my personal case. If that answers that question.
On the flip side, follow your interests. I didn't start getting into the metaphysical or the studies of modern spiritual practices because I felt like I hit rock bottom. For me,
Mm-hmm.
it was a pivot based on what I was interested in. I was like, oh, you know what? If I'm going to work on my writing, I need to understand some of these things. So I came at it from, you know, a conscious analytical mindset of like, okay, I need more background information. I need to understand this for myself. And then it turned into a, yeah, but let's make this your lifestyle now.
Right.
So follow your interests too. If you have a conscious, cognizant interest in something, or you're being drawn to a specific person that you happen to see online because their post gets in front of you or somebody shares it, follow that that trail.
Okay, so you've made the decision that you want outside help and you don't want a therapist or a doctor. You want to do something alternative. Then what? Then what's the next step in your process? How do you pick out of all of these modalities? You know, you go to the shop and you see the 62 modalities. How do you know where to go?
I didn't. I gave in. I said, okay, at the shop, it was at the time, the manager of the shop, who also did some work and had her own room. And I just said, I went up to the counter and go, and she looked at me, she's like, I know, type of thing. Like, I know, like we were on the same wavelength. So for me, it was definitely finding the practitioner first, explaining the feelings, having her help probe too, and having the right questions so that she understood. So for me, I've been more on the base of the practitioner is really the key point for me. And that's where I continue to carry in my own practice, is knowing a good practitioner can fine tune the session for you.
Yes.
A good practitioner can ask the right questions to know what type of work may be needed, or can feel, or can just sense and get in once you allow them to. So your willingness to be open as best you can, and your willingness to show up in whatever form you are at that moment, so that they can authentically feel it out or ask the questions. And then they know their toolkit. They know. So maybe too, just because on my website I had offered Reiki, it's not one of my more well-known stuff. It's not the one I go to the most. Can I do it? Yes. But I'm more apt to filter in some other service. So
right.
They know their toolkit the best. They know what's going to work for them. In just like, you know, different chefs in the kitchen will have different favorite tools, and they can get stuff done and bake that cake, you know, whatever their outcome
Why
is.
Why are we always talking about cake? I think we may have a
right. Oh shoot. But you know, they have the tools in the kitchen and the ingredients that they need, and they know when a different chef is going to do things slightly different, even though the formula should technically be the same.
Right.
So for me, it's always been, and she knew what I needed, and asked questions along the way, and then pivoted in session if we needed to pivot.
That's so important.
Yeah. I definitely echo that. Find somebody that you feel safe with, and find somebody that is willing to meet you where you are and is adaptable. If you know, and don't be afraid to not go with that person. Like if you're talking to somebody, I would say if they're not willing to at least have an initial consultation or a free 10-minute consultation with you, or even an email exchange to see if you're on the same wavelength, or if they have the tools to help you with what you're working on. You know, don't be afraid to not go with that person. Keep looking until it feels right. It may be the first one right from the get-go, and it may be the fifth person that you talk to.
Right.
You deserve to have a quality session that helps you and makes you feel like you have an answer, or at least a starting point to what you're working on.
I think you really hit the nail on the head when you said to find a person that makes you feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a pretty vulnerable thing to have someone be up in your business, like messing with your energy. I don't personally I'm not a visceral responder, but I know a lot of people that are, and they say, oh, this was amazing, or this felt terrible. And to have someone in that sort of, you're in a position of vulnerability, and so to find someone that makes you feel safe, that is a really key word there.
Mm-hmm. I will say on the flip side, you can also have a lighthearted, fun exploration of modalities. And so sometimes it is just going, oh, there's this person on the street corner at this festival and they're offering something I've never had before and I want to just experience that. Go ahead, you're going to go into it with a certain energy. They're going to meet you hopefully with that same energy. It may be total crap and it may feel really good. It may just pique your interest to go, I want to learn that. As a practitioner myself, I want to experience so much. I want to do all of the things so that I know what I can bring into my own practice. So that means having different types of readings, different types of readers, palm readings, tarot readings, oracle, sound therapy, reading different books, exploring all of the stuff so you have that experience and know what that feels like. To know that's kind of like a guiding point too. If I have a really crap reading and that didn't resonate, that tells me a whole hell of a lot about myself in the situation anyway. You're not missing out on anything by having a bad reading. You're gaining more insight still. So being able to go in lighthearted at, let's say, an expo or a festival or something fun, is always beneficial too. So you could try out, I've never had theta healing and that's all being offered right now. And there's this person, I don't have a bad gut feeling. I might not have this huge attraction either, but what the heck, let's try it anyway.
Right.
Just so I have that experience.
And expos are great tasters. I know that we don't get out our whole bag of tricks at expos. We're not going to sit at an expo and in 20 minutes rock your world. This is a little bit of who we are. Mm-hmm. Do we vibe? Do we connect? And then if so, I'll see you again kind of thing.
Exactly. But it's okay to be exploratory and not have to be this like groundbreaking deep healing. So just kind of know when it's appropriate. You could try a lot of different things. If you're interested in different modalities, read, or YouTube or whatever. So it's different kind of what you need in the moment. Are you gaining your toolkits? Are you gaining experience? Right. Or are you going deep and hard in the paint where you need a really quality practitioner that gets you, or going to the same, I only have a few people that if I need some deep stuff, I'm only going to a few people because those are who we've established, kind of like going to a family doctor. Sure. Honestly, you've established history. You don't have to rehash out and get. What you're going to also get is I don't have to state my family history or fill out those forms every single time energetically with a new practitioner. They've established, they know I've had this same whatever, and know how to handle that in my energy. Otherwise, you could just be it saves you money, honestly, right? Because you're not having to see and rehash and get the same reading from a different practitioner because that's what they're picking up on. That makes sense?
It makes sense to me.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I think it can be a little bit of trial and error. Like, you can, and I think what's important to know is that we're so human. In the sense that you can go to one practitioner for Reiki and you can go to another practitioner for Reiki and have two totally different experiences, because different practitioners or intuitives pick up on different things. And that doesn't mean that one is wrong and one is right. It's up to you to sort through and sift the information, and both may be valid. So really pay attention to what resonates with you and what feels right to you and what doesn't. And that doesn't mean that you need to go rake that person over the coals because you were told something you didn't like, but be aware that, it can be very different across the board.
100%. Which brings in, I think I generally follow the concept that it's the practitioner. Like, I'm definitely forming the relationship with the practitioner before I am the modality. And if I find that the modality isn't for me, then I might seek something else out. But it's definitely the person first and then the modality.
What I'm also hearing in this is sometimes it's neither one, but it's more often you and how you show up. It's really ultimately the practitioner's just there holding your hand and being a guidepost. It's you who's doing the work.
Yes.
It's you who's doing, so whether it's, I guess there could be people out there who could bounce around practitioner to practitioner and seeking different things and get very successful results because they are so aware and are willing to do the work within that, construct. And some people need a consistent guidepost and need that quality practitioner. So it's really kind of you and what you need, the experiences you've had, and your willingness to show up and do the work. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say enough about that. Like, I didn't want to get into a preachy moment where I'm like, yes, you have to do the work. But I think that where we have come from as energy practitioners, or as, like, I don't know what your guys' experience was when you were younger about it. It was, you went to a psychic to talk to a dead person, and then I was introduced to energy work, as it were, off of that bouncing off point. So people expect you to talk to Grandma Tilly. Oh, but here's this energy work on the slide, and it's not like that anymore. That may be what it was like at one time, but it's no longer that. I don't have to be a medium to do energy work. So it's whatever your flavor is. There is someone out there that matches you perfectly, but also bringing this back around to doing your own work. A practitioner worth their salt is going to say, they're not going to present this to you and say, yep, this is going to take care of all the problems in your life. Everything's going to be poof, magical, and it's all going to go away. That is a red flag. Like, you run at that point. For me, that's my position. If they're telling you they're going to fix you, or they're going to, change your life in one session, that those are big cues to me that the person is working from their ego, and they're wanting to sell you something. They're not wanting to work with you and make those long-term changes that you may be looking for. I believe in this so much so that recently have changed all of my integration sessions to be like a minimum of 2 weeks, because I want you doing the work and me doing the work, and it bounces back and forth, and it takes that long we are complicated people, right? We're multidimensional humans. We have layers and layers of bullshit programming, and you got to get below that. You can't do that in 30 minutes. I mean, maybe you can. I just don't feel like you can have the best possible experience in a 30-minute, 60-minute session.
That kind of leads me into something I wanted to bring from one of the books. One of the resources that we're bringing to the table. This is Alchemical Healing by Nikki Scully. This was one of my first ever books on my path, and have had it. It's just amazing. Anyways, she says in the intro, the power of alchemical healing comes from the intention of its practitioners, from their willingness to suspend any personal agenda in the healing work in order to allow something new to happen each time.
Testify.
I mean, she goes on more and more and more, but I mean, that's it. It's the intention of its practitioners is where the work does. So she says in her book, alchemical healing is only as good as it's the intention of its practitioners. And she came up with this modality.
Well, and as a practitioner, you're not going to get results for that person if you're attached to the outcome. Like, if you're really wanting this person to heal, yes, of course I want you to heal. But if I am less of a practitioner because you don't heal, that's where you're going to start running into trouble. So absolutely. What was that book? Alchemical Healing by who?
Nikki Scully.
Oh, yes. We've talked about this before, haven't we?
Yeah, this is my jam, man. Oh, God. I love it. I'm going to try to find this other one from Gene Keys. But now I can't. I should have highlighted it, and I can't find it. So carry on.
Ooh, I almost sang.
Oh, we were going to get that to happen at some point.
Probably. I have just a small point about energy healing in general. You might feel like, especially at first when you're new to it, you might genuinely feel amazing right afterwards, but then it sort of tapers off. And most practitioners will tell you that's probably pretty normal. But I want to remind you that there's a little bit of a dopamine hit there. When you go have energy work done, it's a dopamine hit. So you have to weed through what's an energetic dopamine hit and what's actually doing genuine healing energy, what's actually moving energy. Does that make sense?
Regarding your point, Missy, about, you may feel amazing after a session and it may be a little bit of a dopamine hit. Part of that is just having that human connection of connecting with somebody helping you in that moment. We have that attraction to people, and when we make those connections, it's so fabulous, right? Like, oh my gosh, I found this person that can help me, and they said this about this, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. Like,
No.
have that feeling, have all of the things, just be aware of that. You'll probably come back down, and then it's like, oh God, now I have to face this shit.
Right. It just adds to, that's another level of discernment that I wish someone would have told me about when I first started. And things that you see in clients that you're like, okay, are you really looking for, there are certain clients that are just looking for that dopamine hit when they're looking to do Reiki or some sort of energy moving work. And then there are some that are looking to do the deep healing. And those are the ones I tend to veer towards, because the ones that don't want to just, they want to participate, I guess, in their own healing. Where Reiki is more like you're receiving, and then the work seems to come afterwards, don't you think? Like the emotional work comes afterwards from what gets broken up during the Reiki session, and that may work for you. But for what I like to do is to work with someone who wants to continually do the work and not just receive. They are an active participant in it.
Oh yeah, that's where the good stuff happens, especially with angelic chakra integration. You'll get messages from Archangel Michael and Archangel Raphael, and I send people home with like 2 sheets of notebook paper, and it's like, this is literally, that's what comes through, and I'm like, this is what they're saying. Yeah. And it's up to them to figure out how to make those things work for them, or to decide if they don't want to pursue that stuff. A lot of it is advice from them that I'm just passing on. I'm just the conduit. And so if you leave and you fold that piece of paper up and put it in the recycling bin, like I can't really help you there. But if you go and you do that work, you integrate that stuff, or you start to pursue something new because of what they have said, and then you come back, we can get to the next layer, and we can just keep going and chase it down to the root and pull it out if need be, or expose it in a way that needs to be done.
Did you find it, Jen?
I did. I really have it now. My finger marked in the right spot.
Are you sure?
Yes. I like this. So Richard Rudd says in his intro, I've discovered that there is no set pathway through your inner being. You have to work out these teachings for yourself inside yourself. There's no guru or guide to show you the way. There's no technique unless you invent your own. They're simply gentle pointers, which, and then he goes in, which I will continue throughout Gene Keys. So he's kind of saying too, it's you. It's not necessarily the practitioner or the modality. It's right. You in the way that you contemplate your own healing and your own awareness and your own expansion, which is why I love this stuff so much too. But
it's an excellent point in that you don't need to have a specific modality in order to heal yourself. They're extra and they're great and they're all good, but it's not necessary. You also can do this yourself.
Mm-hmm. Simple awareness can go a long way. Awareness and mindfulness and being open. Sometimes we need the tools though. Some people need the tools and love the Reiki, and you just triggered something for me as to maybe why I don't connect as much with Reiki work, is that you break all this stuff up, and then it's like, okay, they feel great leaving, you just gave them that hit of whatever they need, and then it was always like the crumbling. You were leaving them to their own crumbling without being there for them, and that is where I have a hard time as a practitioner. Like I stress every appointment, if you need me, I know this is a lot to pack in, whether it's energy work or reading. It's a lot to integrate. It's a lot to pack in. Contact me. Here's my number. Text me. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here for you. Not every case requires a whole nother appointment, because I think that's part of the fear on as a client is being able to go to a practitioner. I paid X amount of dollars to have X amount of minutes and to do this work. And then something comes up a day or two, a week or something later. And then I have to go, I have to come up with another $60 to $100 to work through that. Additionally, like, because I still feel like I need their help. I never want to be that person that just drop you on your butt and say, here you go, figure it out, or pay me more. I want to be part of that ongoing process. So, and I will let you know when I feel like this is enough work to require a whole nother session, or sometimes just a simple text and reassuring validation of your experience after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely. If you find a practitioner that's not willing to help you afterwards, that's another red flag. And to go back to that passage that you read, Jen, the part where he got into, there is no technique unless you invent your own. For me, that really calls back to the discussion that we had about, gods and deities. It reminded me that you can work with and you can kind of have a technique for connecting with those energies or those archetypes that's ultimately your own. And it reminded me of my experience when Loki first came into my awareness, and how I was freaked out by that. And I reached out to somebody else that I knew had worked with him. And I had to learn that they had a totally different experience than I did. And what they may be working on with him is different because of where they are. I'm in a different place. I need to be aware that chances are what we team up with is going to be vastly different than that other person's experience. So a lot of it really comes from sifting through, your own status and your own interests, and that's why people have such varied experiences when working with some of those deities as well as other practitioners.
That's right. Do you find sometimes, like I felt when getting into Reiki and stuff, like I felt like I was doing it wrong. I felt like, this is good stuff, but I don't want to follow the rules because the rules don't fit, but I like the basis of it, but can I still call it this? I think that's what I struggle with a lot of times as a practitioner. And I've totally revamped my site and how I offer things because I couldn't consciously say like, okay, here's a Reiki session. And then you get into the Reiki session, you're like, we're not doing this. Or I'm not doing it in the way that you expect. Like I couldn't stick to those labels of the different a la carte menu items. So I've combined it all into what we're going to work on. We're going to create a custom session for you, whatever you need. But even yet, like I still, like the alchemical healing, I love all the bases, but I'm not going to go through the certification process. I'm just not. Again, probably another future episode to talk more about that. I do Reiki, but I don't do Reiki by the book, or I do this and I dabble in that. And I feel bad saying I am this type of practitioner. Like does that make sense? Like I can't claim these words. I can't claim these modalities because I'm not really following.
To it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've gotten to that point too, because I kind of didn't really jive with Reiki in and of itself by itself either, because something felt just a little bit, not really hollow at the end, but like it wasn't complete. I guess being a practitioner and energetic worker, on one hand, I can compartmentalize in the sense that if somebody is coming to me because they just need to relax and they just need to be exposed to the sound, I can do that. I can just do sound and have you on the table and get you into that state where you can work on healing yourself. But if you come to me for more of an energetic session, I will run angelic chakra integration, but I open it up to whoever else needs to come through. So that may be Aunt Tilly. That may be Thor. It may be
right.
Kuan Yin. I open the space up to whoever needs to connect with you right now on whatever you're working on. That's what will happen. So it's not just the archangels in that sense. So I guess for me, that's about the only two ways that I can kind of compartmentalize, but I don't want to. It's challenging because I don't want to limit myself either. So
yes, that's a big one too.
Things can get weird.
Part of it, I do recognize where you have to be searchable as a practitioner. So there's that language barrier to most people. And I use Reiki just because it's well known. I guess in our area, it's easy. It's an easy search. So I still keep that as like a keyworded thing. So being searchable and people might not know. It's kind of like the word Kleenex versus tissue, like whatever those words are called. It's not Kleenex brand, but you call it Kleenex anyway. It's kind of what I feel like Reiki is almost become for energy work.
Yeah.
In a sense. So I get that as well. But yeah, there's some things that I really can't claim, but I love to work with. And it is a part of session and breaking, I don't know, those boundaries, I guess.
Right. And have you guys ever had the experience where you've gotten it wrong? Like not as a practitioner, but as a recipient? Like have you ever gone to a practitioner and you thought it was a good match and then it ended up not being a good match? And then you're sort of like, well, screw this whole thing then. right? And I think that happens to us a lot, where someone finally decides, because we live in a society where we can't spend money on ourselves, someone finally decides to spend this money on this extra thing, and then they go, and then it's bad, and then it ruins the entire modality for some other practitioner or for someone else, because Karen's going to tell Jane at the office she went for this and it sucked.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've done that for a lot of years. And I just wondered if you guys had ever had that experience where you were like, yeah, this isn't for me, but then after the fact.
I don't think I've had that experience with energy work, but I have had that experience with readings.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I think primarily it was what happened at an expo. Once I went to somebody for a reading, and then I walked away and I was kind of like, well, that was not what I expected, and a little lame.
Right.
You know, I've been really, really choosy with who I do energy work with. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've noticed it more on the long term. And I think it's more of, instead of like actual sessions, it's like the people I have around me in this community, and who I have confided in and have worked, you do work. Like we've talked in Messenger, and we work through stuff, right? And that's like just almost as good and valid to me as going to you, Missy, or you, Laina, for a session in a lot of cases. Like, and we're working through, and so having that maybe with another person for a long term, and then finding out that maybe I shouldn't have, and having a couple sessions and investing my time to realize long term that wasn't maybe the best of choices for me, and I got wrapped up into some things emotionally, created an experience to heal from on the positive note. But I really especially in the beginning when I was doing readings, I would say, if this does not resonate with you, please note that. Please take that into consideration, because not all readings, you're going to learn something. Whether it was a shit reading, whether it was wonky, whether it was a canned message or whatever, you're going to learn something about yourself because of that, even in the midst of and not saying that they were right. You're going to learn about your own discernment. You're going to learn about what you already know. You're going to revalidate something. So yes, I've had really crap readings, but I guess I'm more of a curious person that I'm just going to keep, well, that one didn't work, chuck it in the bucket and keep going.
Exactly.
That was censored quite well. Good job.
You're welcome.
Chuck it in the which bucket, Jen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Normally I don't like to censor myself, but I understand for purposes of actual doing a legit project, I probably should. So
yeah, for the sake of professionalism. So if we've made the same even decision to seek someone out who wasn't a good match for us, and even if we've had that, it doesn't stop us from continuing to find someone else who maybe does the same or something slightly different. You guys, the rules are changing. The rules of Earth are changing. We have gone through this ascension process, and we are at the crescendo of this great experience. And that means these modalities are going to be changing. Mm-hmm. The practitioners are going to be changing because their DNA, their crystalline structure is upgraded. It's new. You're going to get more information. So I want to encourage anyone who has maybe had a bad experience to be able to set that aside and do it again, and do it differently, or do it the same, because I bet you're going to get something completely different. All three of us could read the same person and get something completely different from them, just based on where we tap in to consciousness. So I guess my point through all of this is really, I just want people not to have a one and done experience. Right. I don't want you to count out all metaphysics based on one bum experience that you had.
Amen.
With that too, you may find, it just popped in my head, with the things changing, modalities changing, new modalities hopefully coming, you may find practitioners who do not want to participate in the new, who want to stay with what they know or so you may find too practitioners that you've seen for ages and ages and ages, or readers that have been in it for 20 years or blah, 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 who don't consciously or unconsciously want to participate in that, and it may not resonate anymore. As you grow, you're going to grow out of practitioners. I hope that when you come through me and see me as whatever work what we're doing, and that you stop coming to me. Like, I hope that you move beyond what I can provide, or I can grow with you and we can create whatever new is coming. It's ultimately what you need. And so your practitioners, there's practitioners that I don't know if I will see again, but they were amazing on my path. I just don't think that what they offer is something that I need anymore, them as a whole.
Which opens the door for when you choose the correct for you, the right for you, the in alignment for you practitioner, you will grow together. Like you will have this sort of, you're my touchstone kind of thing. I may not talk to you for 6 months, but then when we come back together again, we're both expanded beings. So lines are a little blurred, but I think that's okay. Like, I think with metaphysics, I don't think we have to have quite that stiff line between practitioner and client. I think they very much coalesce and blend. And once you find a good person, I think that they do. I think you can grow together.
Yeah.
Maybe they've got a new modality. Maybe something new's come up, and you trust them. You trust them to have your best interest at heart, versus just, I'm here for the quick $20 or whatever.
That's what too. Like, well, this person has always done XYZ, and then or me as a practitioner, I choose to no longer offer a certain thing, and I'm offering something different. If that doesn't vibe with you anymore, that's totally fine. If it does and you're willing to try it out or to grow with me, then that great too. But there's practitioners, hopefully. I know getting into this, we tend to add more to our plates, right? As practitioners, we keep getting more tools, more different modalities to integrate. Very rarely, maybe it's just me, but very rarely do we see people stop offering something. And I think that might be something that's going to potentially be coming as part of this shift is happening even within our own communities. Maybe I'm like, you know what, this does not resonate with me anymore, and I've kind of really grown into this direction and offering something new. And that may lose, as practitioners who may listen, it may lose you clients. It may shift, and you may have this weird lull period as you regrow your new audience and people following. So, and that's okay too.
Right.
I think bottom line is, like, the modality can get you in the door, but the practitioner makes you stay.
That's a good way to put it. It's a good, just as a practitioner, I have just had that realization where I'm like, oh, they're here for me.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if I switch platforms, they're here because of what we have built together.
I had that with my own reading at one point, and someone just said, Jen, you are the product.
Right.
Not the Reiki, not the reading, not the this. You are the product. So, and shifting that really kind of like.
So maybe for listeners, then we can kind of go over our maybe favorite modalities, or like, I would like to hopefully have someone walk away with something they didn't know by the end of this. So in terms of, oh, check this out for this kind of thing. So do you guys have things that you want to share about modalities that you do, modalities that you dabble in, modalities that served you well, and what they served you well in, so that people kind of have a handle and they can go do their own research maybe?
So I guess.
I have a list of resources too that we share.
Oh, I saw Laina typing in the Google Docs earlier, so I knew she was coming up with something. One thing, if you were getting into the two that I referenced today, if you wanted to look something up, alchemical healing and the gene keys are some amazing works. Alchemical healing is going to be very more shamanic based, mixing the terminology with alchemy, which those who know me is really kind of my thing. Hence the name of my service, Shamanic Alchemy. And then the gene keys is something I think that is going to be more up and coming. They're really some really cool stuff in there, based off of, if you're more of a analytical, read my astrology chart, read my human design, gene keys is going to be a cool avenue for you to get to know yourself and contemplate parts of yourself on that regards.
And Laina, I know you had a list of resources as well. Are they modalities or just books that you found interesting, or what did you have?
No, so they are books that I thought would be interesting depending on what people who are listening are interested in. So if you want to start off with learning about a modality, for instance, as opposed to finding a practitioner, for modern shamanism, I have a couple. One of the leaders in the community, I guess I should say, is Alberto Villoldo. So he is a psychologist and a medical anthropologist who's been studying shamanism for years. He has a lot of great books on the topic of shamanism and how he has incorporated that into his life and how he teaches it. Since the pandemic started, he has been pretty regularly offering free videos on his Facebook page talking about shamanism and the shamanic journey and lots of other elements of that. So I definitely recommend checking him out on social. He does offer trainings on his website, if that's something that you want to get into.
And that's, you go ahead and say that again, because I was going to spell it for people so they could look it up, but I'm not going to murder the last name with my own very...
So so it's Alberto and then Villoldo, so it's Villoldo. Another really great book to start off with in learning about shamanism is Awakening to the Spirit World by Sandra Ingerman. It's a really good intro to the practice and kind of has a basis of the history of it. There's also The Hollow Bone by Colleen Dietzman, talking about how the shaman really embodies that aspect of becoming the hollow bone, inviting what needs to happen for the person and stepping into the spirit realm and emptying out the ego in order to complete the work. Personally, for me, when it comes to like witchcrafty stuff and tools, I have found Jason Mankey's books to be very helpful, especially because he discusses the history behind many of the tools and the practices that he writes about. His book on the witch's Athame has been one of my favorites and the most helpful ones, but he's got them all across the board there. So that's Jason Mankey. When it comes to, paganism, modern paganism, and Nordic spirituality, or essentially Norse paganism, I have some thoughts on that topic. I would say definitely start with the Poetic Edda. The one by Jackson Crawford is really good. He's also got his own YouTube channel where he talks about Nordic spirituality. So he teaches you about the runes, the history of the Vikings, and the different deities and such. So he's a great resource there. He comes from a purely factual mindset. So just know that he's not really so much seen as a spiritual leader, and he doesn't claim to be one. Neil Gaiman's books on Norse mythology are really great, especially since he narrates them himself on Audible, so you can listen to him reading his own book, which as an aspiring author, that's fabulous to me. And then you can also check out The Wisdom of Odin on YouTube. It's a YouTube channel by a dude in Kentucky. His name is Jacob, and he has built a community of modern day Norse pagan practitioners. So if that is your jam, check it out because it's a really fun community to be a part of.
I tend to veer more towards psychology, chemistry, quantum physics piece of healing. So any suggestions that I might have would be Theta Healing Modality by Vienna Stiebel is a good place to start. I do find that to be a little outdated, but it's a nice place to start. Emotion Code by Bradley is another one that talks about how we get emotions kind of stuck in your body. So I really enjoy that. Metaphysical Anatomy is another great resource where you can actually look up maybe your ailment and then open the book to the ailment, and then you have all these options for things to look into that she has found in her practice has been similar across the board through all these clients. So that's a nice little study. Anything by Greg Braden, I am thrilled to participate in or learn from. And there was one more I was going to mention and I can't, it's off. Oh, just epigenetics in general. The study of epigenetics is fascinating to me, how we carry our grandmother's stuff and how we are the age of breaking that cycle. So from my own experience with channeling, they gave us the date, and actually it's a very funny story because we work hard for the information that we get, even though people may not. It's different, right? So we get our information differently, but there's a lot of we work hard behind the scenes. And one night we were just sitting there and things were stalled, and I was like, Spirit, what are you doing? And they said, hold on. And so what he was doing was getting permission to give us some information. Why we could have this information, they said, because you bitches did the work. So we had done this work, and the reward was after October 28th of 2019, no babies would be conceived. They will not carry transgenerational trauma anymore. So any babies born after or conceived after that date, and that was when 5D, according to our guides, our channeling, according to them, that is when that 5D went into place, is when the transgenerational trauma stopped, among other things. It's not one thing, but what I really enjoyed about that was just that it was this sort of date that put this, here we are living and breaking these cycles, and now we have an endpoint, right? And all of our babies are going to be clear from there on. And so it gave me a window into, okay, so for the next 100 years, maybe we're going to be breaking this cycle, but then after that point on, there's not going to be any more of this sort of work as far as stuck business and epigenetics. It's all just very cool. So that's where I live.
And you, Missy, have this cellular reformation stuff. So you're working also in helping us on participating in this and doing the work and guiding us through how to do this work, this new.
Yeah, so they channeled that. Yeah, they channeled that last year. I would love to say that we invented it, but we didn't. It's actually a really old sacred process that is just coming back into the fold. And it's a way that everybody gets to take charge of their own vessel and their own ship. And you don't have to be attuned to any certain energy. You don't have to do anything special. My job here is to get this in the hands of as many people as will give me the time of day to listen to. And you don't have to be gifted in any way, shape, or form. You just have to have the desire to take care of yourself. And it's a few words every day, and that's it. It's no more difficult than saying your prayers at night if you want to come at it from that direction. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, well, once again, we want to thank you guys for all joining us for today's chat. And if you want to know more about who we are and what we do, we are on Facebook at facebook.com/Quantum Coalescence, Instagram at Quantum Coalescence, and our email address is quantumcoalescence@gmail.com. We're always looking for topic ideas. We're looking for people to interview, questions in general. Between now and then, just keep it all on the QC, friends.